Another thing they did mention too about gameplay is that there's not. I love this though. I love their fucking naming schemes are terrible. They said that there won't be an AP grind, right? But
yeah,
the new system,
but they're just gonna name it something else.
Yeah.
Is it really called Anima Power?
Yes,
is that the new system?
Yes, it's the same fucking letters. It's like, I'm not saying that Anima Power will be like Artifact Power, but let's be honest, it doesn't give me a strong vibe when you literally say, there's no AP grind. By the way, here's a system that's going to be abbreviated as AP.
Hello and welcome to the Two-Step Podcast. On a different day, but the same people are here. I'm Bag, and as usual, joined by Mag.
Hello.
And today, we're going to talk some trash about Blizzard. Pretty much only Blizzard today, because, you know,
yeah. As if that hasn't been the case for the last month or so.
The Two-Step Podcast Blizzard edition is basically every single episode.
The Two-Step Blizzard Podcast.
We are an hour late. I blame time changing today. It's my fault. I blame time changing today.
Time changing?
Yeah, the time went forward.
Like daylight savings and bullshit?
Yeah. Garbage.
Alright.
But yeah, so topics today are basically all BlizzCon ones. We got a couple that aren't about BlizzCon. But it's mainly going to be BlizzCon. We got official announcements, Diablo 4, Shadowlands, Overwatch 2. We already knew about Warcraft 3 Reforged, but we got a little bit more information about it, and I think we forgot something, but we'll have to see if we can remember it.
I don't think we forgot anything.
So, let's get right into it, because we're probably going to be bullshitting and talking a whole bunch and going over time as we usually do. So let's get it poppin'. One thing that's not on the list is something that not a lot of people are talking about. BlizzCon is filled with protesters. Like, there's people handing out May t-shirts.
I wouldn't say it's filled with protesters.
Surrounded is probably a better word.
I think people's my reaction to that. Well, sorry, not my reaction, but what's the word I'm looking for? The reactions that I've seen from other people, I think some people are underwhelmed by what they thought would be a massive protest in the same way that Area 51 meme wasn't a massive fucking thing. But I think people's expectations are just lower than what they probably should be. A protest doesn't generally mean hundreds of thousands of people standing around a fucking location waving flags. That's not, it doesn't need to take more than maybe a dozen or so, which is about what we've been getting for the most part. About a dozen or so people. Outside the venue, but then there's been some people inside the venue. For starters, they have still allowed people to do the Q&A, and they have let people do the whole Hong Kong bullshit thing in the Q&A. Some have been better than others.
I thought that was interesting. Didn't J. Allen Brack get a Hong Kong question thing, and he kind of just like dealt with it?
Yeah, he did. But it should be noted that J. Allen Brack, I don't have any profound opinions on whatsoever. Fucking, what was it? PC Gamer did a recent interview with him, right? Asking his opinions on the whole matter. As you do, we knew we were never going to get any answers from this. As far as I'm concerned, I was never expecting any real apology, because an apology doesn't mean anything. Actions speak louder than words. And so far, with that front, Blizzard have done nothing, right? And they won't really
you don't like them giving you fees? Feels?
Yeah, and they won't do anything until another event happens. We won't know, right?
Yeah, we'll have to see.
We'll have to see.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the biggest problem I have with his statement, right, about saying, here's the big problem I have with his statement. He goes on and says he doesn't mind political discourse as long as it's not on official channels. I'm like, okay, first of all, that's a bit contradictory. But the biggest contradictory statement, right, that he made is that he was wearing a fucking LGBT support badge.
Yeah.
During the event. And I'm like, so what you're telling me is that it's fine to make a political statement as long as it's an easily marketable political statement. But since Free Hong Kong and the Hong Kong fucking like protests and stuff, because that's not easily marketable to China, at least, then you're not going to do it. Like, that's so bullshit. I mean, I don't, and that's,
yeah,
like,
it was pretty bad.
Disagree. It's fine to say we don't want politics on our platform. Please don't do any
Sure.
kind of politics on our platform. That's fine. But when you then go and engage in politics yourself, you are literally saying it's to have politics, just not those politics. And it's like, okay, so you're full of shit then. You just, what? It's so hypocritical. But I don't really want to talk about that. I think enough's been said on that, and nothing really new has come from that. We won't see Blizzard's stance on that for real until another tournament in China happens, if it does. The only reason they were allowing the Q&A stuff to happen is because, one, it would cause an even bigger shitstorm. They don't need that now. And two, they could just not air that in China. It should be noted that the host during the questions was pro Hong Kong.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see how that goes. So let's get right into it then. So the main topics start with Diablo 4. So the biggest takeaway that I got from BlizzCon so far about Diablo 4 is that this is something that Crip said, is that he played the game,
the demo,
Diablo 3. He played the Diablo 3 demo, and said that the BlizzCon demo for Diablo 3 and what was actually released was very different. And what he said is that it was very different in a very positive way. But don't take that at face value.
No, but that's why I'm not taking anything that they show us at face value for the same reason, right? Because keeping in mind that they have said on record that Diablo 4 is not coming for a while, right? And that is to say that I wouldn't expect to see Diablo before at least 2022, personally, right?
Not even close.
And that means that there's a lot, that's a long time for so many things to change. Not just with the game itself, but with things like the way Blizzard's being managed. So, what fucking Diablo 4 looks like now might not be what it looks like in 3 to 4 years from now. That's kind of the concern I think people should be prepared for, because that's how Diablo 3 worked. Keeping in mind that Diablo 3 was in active development for well over 6 years, and they changed it twice.
Something ridiculous like that.
They changed it multiple times.
It was very different after, each iteration that they made was very different. So even if Diablo 4, what you saw looks good right now, don't expect it to be that game by the time that it releases. That's something that you really need to keep in mind. Now, I'm not overall going to be negative about the game when I say that. I think that what we saw was promising looking.
Put it this way.
I know.
Simply put,
I know Mag's going to be happy because there's a fucking dwarf.
Bag is significantly less cynical about the game than I am. But I'm cynical about Blizzard in general and the video game industry. Basically, I'm the cynical side of this podcast.
Yeah.
Heavily.
You gotta have both sides. So, I think that we should be somewhat wary of Blizzard at the moment because they're
optimistic at the very minimum. That's it. Yeah. I wouldn't say I'm optimistic, but I would say if you're going to be cautiously so.
Yeah, because you quite possibly will be disappointed, especially with some of the upcoming later stuff. Diablo 4 is basically the best looking out of all of the announcements, and that's saying something right now.
That's not, And we haven't forgotten anything, right? Right? No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think there's anything that's forgotten. So, it's gonna be more Diablo 2-esque than Diablo 3, so this game, I feel they're finally trying to make the spiritual successor to Diablo 2 that Diablo 3 failed to be, that PoE is. And the main thing that Mag and I are concerned about is that sure, the game's gonna feel great. It's gonna have Blizzard polish. It will. It's gonna feel amazing. It's gonna feel better than Diablo 3. It's gonna feel better than Path of Exile. But is there gonna be shit to do?
I mean, Diablo 3 combat feels better than Path of Exile, right? In my opinion.
It does. Absolutely it does.
Diablo 3's biggest weaknesses. Because I can still go play Diablo 3 for a week or two, right? I'm not too bothered by it, but that's it. You play it for a week or two, and then you stop, because there's nothing left to do. The end game... for me personally, Diablo 3's biggest issues is that it doesn't have any end game, really. You just do rifts. You do greater rifts, and it's just endless. And they're fine. They're enjoyable, sure, up to a point. But at some point, you will run out of items to try and find. And eventually, you're just trying to get, ancient fucking ancients, or primal ancients, as they're called, right? And it's
I thought that system was stupid, dude.
You're just gearing up the same gear that you already have, but now it's got more stats. And it's kind of why though? What's the point in that? It's so pointless. And then other than that, all of the meta, the skills and the builds and stuff are tied to sets. And now I personally don't have a problem with sets. But sets are very limiting in the amount of different... Like, there are tons and tons and tons of skills in Diablo 3 for every one of the classes. But if it doesn't have a set based around it, it's fucking worthless. So that's really the big issue with sets.
Yeah, and sets in Diablo 3 are basically the balancing. They're the things that make each season or whatever different because of how they change them. It's what's, the thing that you play during that season. So that's all that Diablo 3 has going for it, is the issue. Is that there's nothing to do but rifts, like Mag said, and the changes are so minor that it's kind of just like, I mean, every season I don't come back because it's not worth it. It's not different. I can just play it whenever I feel like it, which is almost never at this point, because I have PoE, because there's stuff to do in PoE. So that's really going to be the biggest thing about Diablo 4, is that I'm sure that it will be a good game. They're going to be hitting all the nostalgia points, because that's what Blizzard is doing now, is they're basically just... harvesting nostalgia.
I hate that. I'd like to point out that I really dislike that because it shows how unoriginal Blizzard has become if they have to rely on veteran nostalgia. It's also particularly bad because it means that they're not growing as a company anymore. Because you can't grow if you're just going to appeal to a bunch of people who are already fans. Basically, appealing to nostalgia just alienates all of the new people that could potentially be into your games and your products, because you're doing nothing to captivate them, because you're bringing back characters that they don't have any actual attachment to. It's not very good, and it's boring for me. It's because I'm creative and unoriginal and stuff I've seen before.
Yeah, and something that you're gonna see a lot of that in Shadowlands when we talk about
and that's
that.
why
That's
I'm not
basically
a fan of that.
Yeah, so the confirmed information we have about Diablo 4 is we have 3 classes. There's going to be the Barbarian, the Mage, or is it a Sorcerer? Sorcerer, sorry. They've changed the name of the magic person like 5 times now. But the Sorcerer and the Druid. So those are the 3 confirmed classes, and there's 2 more coming. I would suspect that you will see Amazon and possibly Necromancer are going to be the other 2. I personally think those are going to be the other 2.
Yeah, the reason I think they choose Amazon is because that's the class they didn't choose in Diablo 3, and Necromancer I'm on the fence about, mainly because, well, I don't mind Necromancer in Diablo 2, but I don't have as much nostalgia boner as other people do with Necromancer. I like Paladin better, which is why I like Crusader in Diablo 3.
Yeah, I think that Paladin might be the choice instead of Necromancer, but I feel like Amazon is going to be it for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can agree with that.
But yeah, so seeing the gameplay, Barbarian looks underwhelming. Sorcerer looks Sorcerer. I mean, it's exactly what it's always been. The Sorcerer hasn't changed in any version of Diablo that's ever been out. It's always been exactly the same. Druid, however, looks fucking awesome. Like,
Druid's fucking dwarf, but not small, basically. Non-midget.
Yeah,
dwarf just like,
it's a big dwarf.
The point being is that Druid is very clearly inspired. That they weren't even going to add Druid, right? They weren't even going to add Druid. Blizzard said that they weren't planning to add Druid, but then one of the artists brought in concept art of this fucking Viking-looking motherfucker, right? That basically just looks like Warcraft dwarf, right? It's literally just Warcraft dwarf, and everyone loves dwarves. So obviously everyone on the team's like, "What, you're telling me the druids could look like dwarves? Fuck yeah, we're doing that!"
Yeah, it looks it looks really good, because the thing about it is that in previous iterations of in previous iterations of the druid, basically the transformations were builds instead of skills. So what I mean by that is that in Diablo 2, when you chose to be a bear druid, you were a bear druid. That's what you did, right? Like, you had bear abilities, and you just played bear. When you chose to be a werewolf, you were a werewolf, and you had werewolf abilities. In Diablo 4, what it looks like is that these abilities are just things that you use. Like, the act of turning into the bear gives you an ability, and you slam the ground. Like, you can just turn into the bear and slam the ground with one click, instead of it being like, well, I'm just always the bear. You shift in and out of the different forms.
That's one of the reasons why I hated druids in WoW, for instance. I don't like the idea of... because I like being able to see my character, I like being able to see gear on my character and all that stuff, and it really feels terrible to... You transform and then basically that's it, you are the transformation. That makes sense, obviously, with the whole... For instance, that makes sense with the whole old D&D style of druid. D&D style of druid, they were really only their normal human form or whatever. They're only a humanoid form when they're in a camp role-playing, basically. But in combat, they change to suit the needs. But since a video game is 90% fucking combat, right, I actually want to be able to see my character. I want to be able to see, like, put it this way, there's no point in playing a fucking dwarf if I don't get to, what's the point? If all I get to see is fucking bear and werewolf, and fuck it, it's completely irrelevant to me. I need to see dwarf. Why can't we just, the dwarf should just be like Wolverine. Fuck it. Just give him claws.
Yeah, dude, just give him fucking claws.
Just give him claws and watch him jump on enemies. Yes!
That's the good thing that I feel about the dwarf, and right now it's the only one that looks like something that I'd be like, holy shit, I want to play that. Crip said the barbarian felt really bad. He said it felt really, really underwhelming, and he was surprised at how bad it felt. He said the dwarf felt more like what a barbarian should be, so take that with a pinch of salt. But
I can guarantee you they won't feel like that, and fucking, I can almost guarantee you they won't feel like that.
It'll be much different. And I mean, it could be better, but it also might not be. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, it
is going to be different. This is years out. I mean, the thing about it is that
all of these games the only game that isn't years out is Shadowlands, because even even Jeff Kaplan went on record saying Overwatch 2 is not going to be a thing for quite a while yet. We're looking at maybe 2 or so years be a minimum. Shadowlands is the only upcoming game.
And the Overwatch 2 being a couple years out still is very good in my opinion, because we'll get into this, but it, like, even graphic-wise, it doesn't look good. So we'll have to...
It's interesting to me that they're actually announcing... It's funny that they're announcing all these things so early, because normally Blizzard wouldn't. They would announce things about a month before they're due to come out. You know, like 11th hour announcements, basically. They like to do that just to fucking... I
mean, we know why they're announcing. They need the PR right now.
They need the PR. Yeah, I get that. But it also means that it's gonna be like, it's like the Elder Scrolls 6 in the sense that when the Elder Scrolls 6 was announced, there was nothing there. And I know it's better than that because we actually have more than that, sure. But what it means though is that next year, we're still not going to be any closer to Overwatch 2 or fucking Diablo 4. But we're going to hear about them. And so it's exactly... And so people going, yes, Diablo 4 is finally out. Yeah, we're finally getting some information. I'm like, yeah, but back when Diablo 3, after, like, let's say a year after about Reaper of Souls was released, right? And keeping in mind, Reaper of Souls was released in, like, 2013, right? So we're already 5 years since then. Back when Reaper of Souls came out, and about a year after it had been released, people were going, hey, I wonder when they're going to announce Diablo 4. And Blizzard kind of just said nothing. And... they can't afford to do that now. And the problem here is that they can't afford to do that. So next year they'll talk about Diablo 4, but they're not necessarily going to tell us much information. That's kind of the issue. So we're learning things way earlier than we probably should, purely because they need the PR. But in the long term, I don't think it's going to be doing very much for them. It's not going to...
Yeah, I feel that I feel this is directly related to all of the negative PR that they've been getting, so...
No, it is.
I feel that it's going to slow down in coming years. I feel that the big companies are starting to realize they can't just do whatever they want and get away with it anymore. They can't just be big bad companies.
When you say anymore, it's not so much that they can't, it's that there is a tipping point in human society when somebody does something really bad, and then the people that are feeling the ramifications of that bad stuff, they get fed up. So they will do whatever, they revolt, or they boycott, or they whatever. And eventually the big bad dude figures, oh shit, I can't do this anymore, so they change. And then that goes well for about maybe 10, 20 years or so, and then the big bad goes, maybe I could be an asshole again, because everyone's got a fucking memory span the size of a goldfish. Except they don't, it's worse than a goldfish, because a goldfish actually has a pretty fucking good memory, people are just dumb. That's...
I actually have to agree there. Goldfish are heavily abused, if you didn't know. Putting a goldfish, they're a very intelligent animal. Putting a goldfish in a little bowl like this is straight up animal abuse. Imagine if you, well, that's not saying much. I sit in front of a computer and don't really move for many hours a day, but imagine if you only had...
That's willingly, right? That's the difference.
Yeah. Imagine if you only had like a 6 foot by like 10 foot room, and that's all that you have. That was your entire life, your entire existence, and food would drop in from the ceiling to you.
Yeah, exactly. And then people go, actually, I would like to point out that I have experience with this, right? When I first went to Auckland and studied, right, for a year, I lived in a box, right? We're talking like 6 foot by 6 foot box, just enough to have a desk and a bed, and that was it. And it had no windows. That's it, no windows, and all you had was a light, and the fucking light would come, and the light pouring out from the hallway, which always had light on. It was fucking terrible. And the only reason that you don't go insane in such a measure is because you're a fucking human. You can open the door and walk out. You can go and buy food that you want. You can have social interaction. If you're a fish stuck in a fucking tiny fucking like bowl, or even just a really big tank, because you can have big tanks, sure. It doesn't really matter. You're still stuck there for the rest of your fucking life. That's terrible.
Yeah, so PSA, don't buy like a beta fish or a goldfish and put it in one of those little tiny bowls.
This is why, people don't seem to get that properly caring for a fish is a lot of work and expensive, mainly because you should have a tank that's at least half the size of the room that you plan to put it in, honestly. Right? Unless it's your living room, because obviously living rooms are way bigger normally. But point being is that my room, like, I should be able to fit a tank on one of the walls if I really wanted to have more than one fish, for instance. If it's not that big, you're fucked. And it can't be empty. It has to have stuff in it too, because if it's just empty. Basically, the point being is that animals require visual stimulation, just like fucking humans do. Pretty much every single animal with more than 2 brain cells, which is, by the way, lots of them, like the majority of them, right? Any fucking animal that is basically not a one-cell organism requires some form of stimulation that isn't just fucking moving and eating. And if you don't provide them with the space for that, then you're a fucking horrible person that shouldn't be owning a fucking animal of any kind. And a fish is an animal.
It is. So, anyways.
Anyway.
Diablo 4.
Protect the fish!
The couple more things that we know about Diablo 4 before we move on to the next topic is that there's going to be skill trees, aka Diablo 2, and once again, grain of salt. We don't know this is going to be the way that it works at the end. There's runes and rune words, so a combination of runes do certain things in the game.
But as I said,
you can level up your abilities.
As I said to Bag, the upgrades for skills in Diablo 3 are called runes. So the fact that they're calling them runes doesn't mean anything, as far as I'm concerned.
So we'll have to see. Well, they're like runes that drop. Like I saw Crit pick them up, like Vex and Zod and all those things.
As a side tangent, as another tangent. One thing I think people forget too, though, is that getting high level runes in Diablo 2 baseline sucked. Seriously, it was fucking grind.
Oh yeah, it was pretty bad.
I see people bitching about how Path of Exile has really bad itemization because the majority of items you pick up are crap, right? And if you didn't filter out anything, it would be the screen would be filled with shit. But it's like, yeah, but did you play Diablo 2? It's the same shit, right? 90% of things were garbage. And the things you wanted were rare as fuck. And then Diablo 3 comes along. It's not any better. It's still the same. Basically, action role-playing games in general are kind of marked by crappy loot. Because it makes the good loot feel better when there's so much shit loot. I mean, you don't have to like that, but that's kind of the way all action role-playing games have worked. From Diablo 2 onward. Most of them have shit loot. I mean, they're just spreadsheet simulators after all, with fancy graphics, right?
Yeah, the thing about Diablo 2 in particular was that in comparison to Diablo 3 and Path of Exile is that it had the same amount of garbage, like percentage-wise, but just less things dropped in Diablo 2. Diablo 2 was very slow compared to either of the games.
Very stingy.
It was very similar to how original Path of Exile was, like when Path of Exile was in beta, is what it reminded me of. But yeah, that's pretty much it. There's going to be mounts as well, and there's going to be like abilities built into the mounts, that's something that I feel that games have really dropped the ball on with mounts.
What, mounts? They just haven't had a lot of games just don't,
abilities related to mounts. Like when you
games just don't have mounts in general. Like,
yeah, that too, and like
I think the biggest reason.
Go ahead.
Well, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Okay, yeah. The preview of Diablo 4 shows the mounts. When you're leaving the mount, you can use an ability off of the mount, right? Like you can use that ability and it interacts with the fact that you're coming off of a mount. You have like weight and movement. I don't feel like very many games have done anything even close to that.
No, absolutely agree with that. And I think the reason why mounts aren't a big thing is because mounts sort of generally speaking, mounts devalue the purpose that exploration has on a game. Because when you have a mount, you're more likely to skip through stuff rather than explore stuff. You can actually see this in Borderlands a lot. Borderlands has a vehicle system. It's a fucking shit vehicle system, but it has a vehicle system. And
they force you to stop.
Yeah, and because of the vehicle system, I'm not gonna explain whether it's bad or not, because that's not the point that I'm making. I'm just making the fact that because it has a mount system, and because the game is designed to using that mount system, there's often no incentive to stop, because you know that once you stop, it's a pain in the ass to explore everything. And if you're going to explore, wouldn't you be better off just not being on the mount? Really, that's why I think so many people. It's a pitfall with mounts that I think people just avoid. World of Warcraft's worth is because flying mounts are a thing. And flying mounts made like going from one location to another so convenient, but it also completely destroys any form of exploration, which is why Blizzard stopped releasing expansions after like Wrath of the Lich King with fucking flying mounts at end game.
Which I think is fine, by the way. We can talk about that as well. I think that the removal of flying mounts is a good thing for exploration. However, I disliked the way that they provide you flying once it's actually there. I think it's really dumb.
It's tedious as fuck. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so moving on to that, Shadowlands. So, Mag is much more cynical about this than I am, just because reasons.
I've played the game for a long time, and I've been burned a lot. It's like I consider World of Warcraft to be the equivalent of an abusive relationship at this point. That's
pretty much, dude. But yeah, so we've gotten a lot of information about Shadowlands because it's coming out next year.
Yeah,
probably around the middle and end half of next year. So we're gonna get Shadowlands, and this is going to be their expansion. Where last expansion they beat their wife. Just abuse the shit out of her. This expansion is going to be like, oh, it's okay, baby, I'm going to change, don't worry.
I'm going to change,
things are going to be better.
I always loved you, everything's going to be better now.
This is going to be that expansion.
And then the following one is where they beat the shit out of us again, because again, it's an abusive relationship. So that's why it's like, why should I'm not buying into it anymore, I'm sick of it. Sick of getting beat.
I, on the other hand, am fine with just playing the expansion.
Greg hates himself more than I do, which is why he doesn't mind getting beaten a little bit.
Yeah, I'll take the beatings for the good times, But I'm most likely gonna play it. But there's a lot of stuff to unpack about it. There's a lot of information that we can talk about.
Of course.
The cinematic in particular was interesting.
Garbage.
In the fact that they decided to do the expected gacha, which I think ultimately, when I look back on it, I'm very not surprised that this is what they decided to do. If you haven't looked at the cinematic, go watch it now.
So the thing about
pause the video or something, because you don't want to spoilers. But yeah.
The biggest problem I have with the whole ending wasn't the ending even. It's not that. It's that it feels undeserved based on BFA's progression. Really, the idea that Sylvanas is going to turn fucking evil and she's going to side with the Shadowlands is another way to become... I assume she's going to try and become Jailer of the Damned, right? She wants to lead them more, because if she fucking controls all the souls that go into the Maw, that means her soul won't go into the Maw. Effectively, she's skipping internal damnation by just having people not die, right? She's just getting... It's basically like the end of Death Hub on SCP all over again. Woo! Great, right? Basically,
it's basically what she's trying to do. She's trying to save herself.
Yeah, she's getting rid of the middleman, and that's fine. For the record, she made sways with that after. The idea is that in a book by Christy Golden. No, it wasn't by Christy Golden. It was a short story by fucking David Kozak on the website. It was 9 years ago now, and there was a crucial piece of lore in that where she tries to kill herself. Like, she legit tries to kill herself. She goes to Ice Crown Citadel because she wants to see what happened to Arthas, realizes that Bolvar's fucking there, shocked and dismayed at the fact that there has to be a Lich King. She decides, fuck this, and jumps off the side of the fucking Ice Crown Citadel and impales herself on the spikes below. And when she dies, all she sees is darkness. Just complete and absolute fucking darkness. Just nothing. But amongst that darkness is the sound of clawing. Just monsters clawing at the edges of her, whatever remains of her existence, right? And this is the worst fucking music for explaining this, but awesome. I love fucking Bubble Bobble,
fucking
right?
Bubble, yeah. That's actually pretty funny. Go ahead.
In any case, she dies, and she feels the essence of Arthas, who claws at the edges of her and then repels when he realizes who it is. The point being is that her soul has been so tainted by not only what she's done, but what Arthas did to her, that she doesn't get to go to the normal Shadowlands or the normal afterlife. She goes to what I guess would be the Moor now. In Shadowlands, they have a place called the Moor, which is where the bad souls go. And the whole story is essentially that after what happened with Arthas, it seems that everyone's going to the Moor. Nobody's going to
Which is terrible, by the way. Yeah, the Maw is not a good place.
The Maw is supposed to be that whole darkness realm that they alluded to in the short story, I'm guessing. And that's fine. And and everything that Sylvanas has done has been to try and prevent herself from going into that void completely.
Which
she doesn't want
I will say that now that we know that, I have slightly more respect for the writing of Sylvanas, just because it does fit her being a selfish prick.
Absolutely, but the problem, as I said, is that BFA's plotline specifically doesn't feel deserved. The point
I agree.
The point being here is that if Battle for Azeroth had ultimately culminated, let's say, what, in my opinion, the ending of Battle for Azeroth should have been, is we should have gotten a final raid where Sylvanas was the bad guy, but instead of killing her, then she opens up the fucking portal to the Shadowlands. And then we realize what she's actually trying to do. Because that would have made more sense. That would have made way more sense and actually opened up to her being a proper antagonist and also fucking Bromsandi's boss lord, whoever the fuck he is. I mean, he's honestly, in my point, pointless. He's a character they've just invented for the purposes of Shadowlands. It's like, great.
Yeah,
I whatsoever. So he's kind of like just
I honestly found that kind of weird, to be perfectly honest with you. I was very kind of, once I learned about Shadowlands, I kind of thought about Bonsomnia, and I'm just like, huh.
Yeah.
So I wonder how integral he's gonna be about this, because the thing about Bonsomnia is that he is basically what the Jailer of the Damned is, but just for trolls, right?
Yeah.
So he only gets troll souls, and we don't really know a lot
that's
about
not the only
Bonsomnia,
thing, though. He doesn't just get troll souls, though. He can get any other souls if you make a deal with him, specifically.
Oh, sure, yeah, of course. You can make a deal. You can make a deal with the devil, and you know, whatever. But but the ones that just automatically go to him, are trolls. So
oh no, he's not the Grim Reaper, but he's fucking Charon or Sharon, however you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Right, literally, that's who he's supposed to be. He takes he just takes trolls.
But the weird thing about it is that we don't really know a ton about who Sylvanas is allying with. We're just kind of learning now that it's something called the Jailer. Yeah. So in the Shadowlands, the Shadowlands, by the way, is where all mortal creatures, which mortals are the Titans, and anything that they create is what's considered mortal, except for the
biggest the difference being is that demons, the Titans themselves, and things like the Void Lords and the Old Gods are technically not mortals because they don't die, or they get resurrected in some fashion. Like demons get resurrected in the Void. Titans don't seemingly. I don't know how Titans actually get into this because they can die.
Yeah, I don't know, and hopefully we'll learn more about that. But yeah, so anything that is considered mortal goes here, and the thing is that there's something called an Arbiter, and there's something called the Jailer. So basically, the Arbiter is who chooses where your soul goes once it hits the Shadowlands.
Oh
basically,
shit! You know what I just realized what the story of Shadowlands is? So in the Shadowlands, we've got to solve this problem where everyone's going to the Moor, right? Everyone's just going to it. This is literally the fucking good place. This is the plot of the good place.
yeah, I can
Congratulations.
See
that. That's it. Everyone just goes to fuck. Because the idea is, spoiler alert if you've never watched the fucking Good Place. Absolute spoiler alert if you've never watched the Good Place. Yeah. Plan to watch it. Massive fucking spoiler. Nobody goes to fucking heaven. That's the plot, right? Or rather, nobody's gone to heaven in such a long time because it's done on a point system. I mean, if you don't get enough points, you don't go to heaven. But nobody knows how many points you need. I mean, for the record, the point system is a joke because it's supposed to be a comedy show, right? It's a comedy fucking sitcom. So it's supposed to not make too much sense. But the whole point is nobody goes to fucking where they're supposed to. They just go to the bad place.
So what ends up happening, for anybody who doesn't know what that is, so basically what's happening is there's an arbiter who chooses where you go once you hit the Shadowlands. There's 5 places that you can go in the Shadowlands, and we'll get into more of them later, but one of those places is the Maw. This is for irredeemable souls that they feel are so terribly bad that they can't be saved, right? These are people that have done such horrible things that they cannot be redeemed. Think Arthas, right? Arthas is basically the poster child for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the person who controls and basically is the face of the Maw is called the Jailer. This is the person that we think Sylvanas is allying with, is the Jailer. Yeah. Now, keep in mind, I don't think she is working for him. I think she is trying to take his job, is what she's doing. She's
trying to usurp him, I think. Because if she gets to decide who goes to the bad place, basically, then she doesn't have to. And she could just make anyone she doesn't like go there. Not that it matters because they're dead, right? I don't see how this works. It's an odd thing making a portal to the land of the dead. Because when you go to the land of the dead and you've made a portal, what's to stop people from just walking out? And what happens when they do? What happens, for instance, we know that Uther is going to make a comeback because he's like one of the leaders of one of the Covenants, one of these factions inside. And it's like, what's to stop him from just going through the portal that we go through? What happens if he goes back to the living? Does he just die?
So
how do you die?
We're the
again?
Okay, so the Shadowlands is basically the death equivalent to the Emerald Dream.
Yes.
Are Emerald Dream denizens able to cross over to our world? The main world?
That's a good question that I don't remember.
Yeah, because I feel like that would be the equivalent, right? Like, lore-wise, I feel like that would be the equivalent of whether or not they can move over. Because the thing about it is that the player is transcending the rules of the Shadowlands and the fact that anything that goes into the Maw is not supposed to be able to come out, but the player can for some reason, you know.
Because we're gods, we're literal fucking gods.
We're murder hobos that run around and,
if you think
do whatever.
Sylvanas and Anduin has plot armor out the ass, then fucking man, what's the character?
So we don't really know whether or not that they're going to be able to come in and out. So we'll have to see.
Here's the thing. In the Emerald Dream, this is where the Ancients lie. The Ancients get resurrected in the Emerald Dream, like the Burning Legion would have gotten resurrected in the Void, in the Nether, right? But they can still leave. The Ancients still leave the Emerald Dream when they get resurrected.
True.
So
okay, so maybe
that means that it can't be a one-to-one copy of the Emerald Dream, because I always thought the Emerald Dream was similar to the Nether more than it was anything else.
Okay, we'll have to see about that. Let's get more into the specifics of Shadowlands though. So they are squishing the levels. This is the best feature that they've announced, I feel, yet, is the level squish and how they're doing leveling from now on.
Well, leveling is actually good. I'm more concerned about how it means for old content. Because remember when they did the damage... In the past, when they do damage squishes and stuff, old content becomes fucking terrible until they fix it.
Yeah, we'll have to see about that. But what I'm saying is that, like, the new player experience is actually going to be semi-good, which I think is good for WoW. Because the new player experience in World of Warcraft... in recent years has honestly been fucking terrible.
I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's bad. It's jarring though. You go from the Cataclysm experience, right, which is completely new zones, and then you get which is great. In my opinion, Cataclysm's revamping of the zones still holds up today, and so the level 1 to 60 experience is perfectly fine and acceptable. There are a couple problems, and I'll get into those in a second, but the biggest thing about it is that from the actual understanding of the game and playing the game and leveling through the 1 to 60 experience, that's fine. But then the moment you walk into Burning Crusade, like once you walk into Burning Crusade territory, into Outlands, then you realize, oh shit, I've just gone from new content to fucking old content. And then you're going around for the Lich King. Still technically old content, just slightly newer than Burning Crusade. And it gets really weird because it's such a fucking weird shift. Basically, it's not until you get to Mr. Pandaria's content, right, where you're leveling through that, where it gets a little bit better again. And even then, the worst parts about the leveling experience is the fact that you basically just don't get any new skills or anything like that for anything, like, ever. You go like there's large periods of time that are like 30 and 60, for instance, and then after 60, where you get nothing, and it's just boring as fuck.
So something interesting that I thought that they said in relation to that, they put that picture up that said, "Who's my war chief?" Because it really is confusing, and the way that they're going to be doing it now is that you're going to be starting out on this island, right? It's going to be like this exile island. You're basically playing PoE. You're starting out on this exile island, and the first 10 levels are you doing a specific set of quests that everyone does, right? And then when you get to the end of that, if you're a new player, you go straight into Battle for Azeroth, so that you can see what's happening with the current story, and you can be caught up, right? If you're not a new player and you're playing an alt, you can talk with Chromie, which is a bronze dragon which controls time. And you can experience... Yeah, it's... Yeah.
It's fine.
Which you can experience a previous expansion and go back in time, which I kind of talked about this. Was this on the podcast, or was this just us bullshitting, where I was talking about how WoW needs to become the theme park MMO again? I can't remember if I talked about it on podcast.
That was last week, I'm pretty sure. You did talk about it.
But I spoke about how the original WoW and the reason why Classic was so popular is that it was a theme park it was a theme park MMO where you can choose whatever you want to do and do it, and it's relevant at all times. So WoW moved away from that from the very first expansion. Classic stuff was useless as soon as Burning Crusade came out. So with this, I feel that it's going to be slightly moving towards what I was kind of talking about, where each expansion you can just choose to do it and it's whatever. I will be very happy with the fact that you can get from 10 to 50 in one expansion.
No, I think that's good, but I don't think I don't like the theme park MMO where they override everything that they just did in the previous expansion with new stuff, because it gets rid of any potential progress that they make as well. Any progress that is made is completely rewritten when they do that. It's funny because I've been having discussions on Reddit with some people about how, like, people want them to revamp the engine, for instance, because they want a whole they want World of Warcraft 2.0. And I don't really care either way, because I don't give a shit about WoW for the most part, but a WoW 2.0 is interesting because it would be more than just graphics. The biggest weakness, in my opinion, for WoW today is the combat system. I mean, when you play all the classes after so long, you've played... You don't have to play every single class or have played every single class, because they all play out the same way. They just look different. You mash 3 to 4 buttons, and then that's about it.
It's one thing that I think is interesting about WoW is that they haven't decided to upgrade their combat system. Because it is a decision. It's very obviously a decision.
It can be very difficult. Yeah, but at the same time, right? They didn't even give us an upgraded bag for a long time. So it could be a case of it might not be a case of them not wanting to change the system. Because there are games like the Elder Scrolls Online, Guild Wars, and other game, right? Guild Wars, I think Guild Wars 2 and the Elder Scrolls Online are probably the peak here, which have really good combat systems for an MMO. And the idea is that if World of Warcraft 2.0 become a thing, I could see them looking at those kind of MMOs, those action-oriented ones, things like Black Desert Online.
Yeah, I was going to say Black Desert is a good example. And
even the Diablo systems. They would just merge all of these together to make a much more refined, more engaging, action-based system. And the reason I think they haven't done it is not because they couldn't, but because it would take a lot of effort to fucking jam it into their fucking engine.
I think that
what do they get from it? They haven't had to do it.
Not very much. They probably would just alienate their player base is the biggest issue.
Yeah, actually, an example
a lot of casuals play WoW.
A big example of alienation is RuneScape. RuneScape 3 changed the fundamental combat. Well, look, you don't have to like the game, but the reality is that RuneScape
I'm more so talking about what they did.
Yeah, WoW. They changed it to be like WoW because they wanted it to be a bit more engaging. That was their intention, to try and draw in new players to make the system more engaging. And for the record, I actually think they did that. I think they did do what they intended to do, which was bring in new players. The problem is that the majority of people who play RuneScape are old players, and they alienated the fuck out of them, which is why old school is so fucking popular. Old school RuneScape is much more popular on average than RuneScape 3, primarily because the majority of people playing old school RuneScape, or RuneScape in general, are veterans. There isn't that many people who go into RuneScape for the RuneScape experience, because if you it's been around for a long enough time that you already know if you want it. It's kind of like EVE Online, right? They've reached, it's not that they don't get new players, it's that you already kind of know if you want to play it or not because it's been around for so long.
Yeah, they've reached their peak
sort of
and they're just sticking
and so
to
the only way to grow for RuneScape was to do the whole thing that they did. I just don't necessarily think that was the best idea for their profits. I think it's funny because I do think it was a good thing to do for the game, but not necessarily a good thing to do for the community of the game. And I don't think there was anything they could have done to fix that. That would be the same with WoW, I think.
I feel that they won't ever update it. Like, I don't feel like that's going to be a thing that happens.
And I don't know if
we'll have to see. I think that Black Desert was a very good example of what an MMO could be.
Too bad it's grindy as fuck.
Yes, so Black Desert suffered from being an Eastern MMO, and so we have a friend. His name is Jinta. He played a lot of Black Desert. This is a person who literally like dedicated his life to Black Desert for a couple months.
If you think that World of Warcraft is an abusive relationship, and you think that, oh man, Blizzard treats its fucking customers so fucking poorly, and they just like I think Blizzard likes to waste players' time a lot, but fucking Jinta spent so much time on this game, and this game is the pinnacle of waste your time again. It's terrible.
Yes. The entire game is just about wasting time. Quests aren't worth doing. They're actually worse than just grinding. You have to grind constantly to be effective. Like, I mean, literally constantly, because it's an endless upwards progression system.
Yeah. Does it have a decay system? I don't remember.
The decay system is naturally built into it in the fact that everyone else is always progressing, so that if you don't progress, you are decaying.
Okay.
So so the way the game works is that you have to farm for money, right? Money is the major thing that is important in the game. And you have to upgrade your equipment. The thing about upgrading your equipment is that when you upgrade your equipment, it's only a chance to upgrade the equipment. It also is a chance to downgrade the equipment. And what you can do is you can spend more money to give yourself a better chance to upgrade the equipment and not downgrade it. So if you want to upgrade, you just need shitloads of money and you have to grind for it. And the thing about Black Desert that's different than other games is that if you know how PvP servers work on World of Warcraft, that's Black Desert, except there's no safe areas whatsoever. You can be killed by anyone, anywhere, at any time. It doesn't matter where you are.
The punishment for it is also complete garbage, because it basically doesn't exist. Like, it does, but it's completely negligible. There is no real downside to just murdering somebody.
You basically become like a red player if you kill people all the time, but for the people that are red players, they don't really care. Because
they don't care though, because they don't lose they don't lose anything from it though. You don't lose like, imagine if you lost access to entire cities and you lost access to all of the things those cities can provide, such as vendors and factions and all that. That would give you, but then for instance, like a real system, a real open world PvP system would have it so that there are unique benefits to cities that you're allied with, and if you go red, you lose the allegiance of those cities and you lose all of the unique rewards, but you would gain allegiance with somebody else, for instance. And so the option is essentially it's a faction where you're choosing, do you want to go red or do you want to go blue? To be honest,
so I
think that we need a third neutral party, because I don't like two faction systems in video games, because I think it just makes it easy for one side to gang. Yeah, it often makes it easier for one side to gang up. Yeah, we do. It's often not that balanced.
Yeah, so I think that that is the natural progression of MMOs as they're going to go forward. Yeah, the combat in Black Desert is some of the best that I've ever seen in an MMO. It's one of the best iterations I've ever seen. But going back to WoW, the level squish. So you're gonna start at level 1 as a new character. You're gonna level up to 10 on the starting island, and then you're gonna choose where you want to go. In that next place that you choose, you're gonna level up to 50, and then from 50 to 60 is Shadowlands. So I think that's positive. I think that's a net positive for the game. I'm glad that they're moving away from trying to push character boosts so hard, because that was very obviously the reason that they were making leveling so hard, is they were trying to just force you into being like, well, if I want to play a new character with my friends right now, instead of spending literally like 80 hours to get there, I can just spend $60 and have the character ready.
I think that's
I'm glad that they're doing.
It's scummy as shit.
It is. It's very scummy. I thought it was terrible. And then the choose your own adventure. So this is basically going to be, this is something that I feel is them iterating well on the like MMO experience here. This is one of the few positives, like the major positives of this, besides the level squish, is that the way that it's going to work is that when you get to the Shadowlands, there's going to be a couple of zones, you progress through them normally, and then you can choose one of the major groups to ally with. When you ally with that, you get certain perks. When you make an alt, you can continue the different ones that you didn't ally with, and your progression continues from the previous character. So basically you have like end game, like New Game Plus is what they attributed it to.
Yeah.
I think that that's a really good change for WoW.
Yeah.
And I think that it's something that is going to, we're going to need to see more of how those systems work.
Which
because
we will,
it's very, yeah, I think we'll get more information about that very soon. Yeah. And then the other thing that's going to be happening is that there is going to be they've called it basically a roguelike dungeon, which I think is pretty cool. We're going to have to see how this works, but it's a scaling dungeon from 1 to 5 players where it just infinitely goes up. And this is a dungeon where you can craft legendaries for yourself from the stuff that drops in it. And there's just a ton of stuff. We don't really have very much information of it beyond that. But I'm most curious about this.
Yeah, if that's an in-game option, alternative instead of raiding, I'd be all for that. Because I like raiding, but I just don't... for instance, for me, next year, I won't have the time to raid. At all. I just will not have the time. Because I'll be fucking studying. And when I'm not studying or... fucking working on projects while studying, I'll be doing podcasts and stream stuff. So I won't have time to raid. But if there's a fucking in-game thing that I can do that's repeatable, like it's basically fucking, it's like they're adding like a match system, like a Path of Exile match system to fucking WoW, which
I think it's cool.
Neat.
We'll have to see how it works out, because like we've said before, there's no
There's no solid information.
We don't know.
We are spitballing here. And another thing they did mention too about gameplay is that there's not... I love this though. Their fucking naming schemes are terrible. They said that there won't be an AP grind, right? But the new system...
But they're just going to name it something else.
Yeah.
Is it really called Anima Power?
Yes,
is that the new system?
Yes, it's the same fucking letters. It's like, I'm not saying that Anima Power will be like Artifact Power, but let's be honest, it doesn't give me a strong vibe when you literally say, there's no AP grind. By the way, here's a system that's going to be abbreviated as AP.
That's actually pretty funny. I didn't realize that.
I don't agree with them anyways, because I think Ian Hosinosis, or whatever his name is full of shit.
Hazakosis.
So...
Yeah, I don't trust any word that comes out of Ian's mouth. I trust the other developers still, slightly.
The guy's a fucking trained lawyer. Ian. Fuck him.
Yeah.
The guy's a master of shit talk, of bullshit, right?
Yeah, and I do not trust him whatsoever. But the so that's going to be interesting. We'll have to see how that turns out, because there's lots of positives potentially there. But until we know the specifics, there is no reason to get excited about that, because it might just be terrible. Keep that in mind. So the next and pretty much final thing about the expansion is that they are going to be doing a massive unpruning. So I'm torn here, and Mag is going to be torn here as well. I'm happy that this is happening, but it should not have to have happened in the first place.
It's such a waste of development resources. They could have been using this time, instead of pruning stuff in the beginning, instead of pruning stuff, they should have been giving us more shit. And then they could have been giving us even more shit now.
Yeah, like, my issue here is the fact that they spent all of this time in basically, the beginning of the pruning happened in Legion, right? That's when it, like, really started.
Yeah, well, I would say that it happened... we can see some of it in Mists, but Legion was, like, where they cut out, like, half of the fucking shit.
Yeah. What they did with Legion is they removed a bunch of stuff and pushed it into the artifact.
To put it in perspective,
the problem is... Go ahead.
I don't think pruning is bad inherently, but they did it in the wrong way. Like, for instance, making rotation simpler, right? That's not a bad thing, really, right? Or even so, rather, removing things like cooldowns and defenses and stuff, removing certain abilities that don't see a lot of use, that's fine. Removing certain abilities that are completely situational for more rotational complexity, that's fine. But they didn't do that. What they did was they removed key fucking cooldowns or buffs, right? and then they didn't replace them with anything. So the idea is that they homogenize classes way too much. Multiple classes would have the same buff, so there's no reason. Which is, I know why they did that. It makes fucking things way more accessible, but it also means that class identity is basically non-existent, right? And it's a problem with why classes feel so homogenous. Like, you don't want your classes to feel basically the same, because then it's boring. And pruning some of their core abilities is really why. It's like, and the worst part about it too is that Battle for Azeroth removed so many more cooldowns, right? And then added so many of them to the GCD. It's like, it feels terrible. I'm pretty sure they never fixed that.
Yeah, it so as I was saying, it started, the heaviest portion of it began in Legion, and they moved all of the abilities into artifacts. But then in BFA, they took the artifacts away and didn't give us most of the abilities back.
And for the record, some of those classes relied heavily on those artifacts, like enhanced.
Yes. They designed the classes around how the artifacts worked, and then they just took them away and didn't even consider what would happen, I guess, if they decided to take those away.
This is why, in my opinion, for instance, Enhancement Shamans, Frost Death Knights, I think a few Warrior specs, and fucking Destruction Warlocks felt really bad because they relied heavily on their artifacts, Blood DKs as well. It's not that they were bad, for the record. These classes still performed relatively well, but they were no longer as interesting or as fun to play because some of the cool stuff that the artifact gave them was flat out removed. Like, or made talents, and that's the worst. Like, for instance, one of the best fucking skills they ever added to Unholy DK, and I know this because I played DK, so this is just the class I can relate to the most. One of the skills that I really loved about Unholy was Apocalypse, and they made it a talent, and you had to choose between it and two other great fucking things. It's like, why though?
Yeah, it's like, why force people to make that choice? And it was kind of upsetting for me when BFA came out and they were saying that they were going to rework all of these classes, right? So they were like, oh, well, we're going to rework all of these classes for BFA, and then it's like, okay, well, we didn't have time. It's like, okay, good. But they said, but we'll rework them in the mid-patch. This is the biggest thing that upset me about BFA, is that, they said, oh, well, we'll rework them in the mid-patch. And then we get to the mid-patch and they're like, well, there isn't really enough time. We have to do this in a pre-patch for an expansion to fix these classes. So basically, they just told us to fuck off and get fucked.
Two classes that got really fucked with this is Enhancement Shamans and Shadow Priest.
Yes. And those were two classes that were very integral to some of our raiders, including me. I really liked Shadow Priest, but
it's not just that they basically raiders. It's the fact that, in my opinion, for instance, Shamans get fucked in the ass every fucking expansion. They're the bastard child. Yeah, they're the bastard child of the game. They always get fucking screwed. And for Blizzard to just turn around and give them the middle finger, and nobody seems to give a shit. People just seem to have forgotten about it. And I'm like, why am I supposed to be excited about all this stuff about pruning, unpruning and stuff when I know that they're probably not going to fix those classes? Why bother? The only fucking thing that I can say that was good about fucking the class thing is Warlocks. Demonology Warlock is one of the best fucking specs ever fucking made in BFA, period. Seriously. If you still play fucking WoW, and you haven't played Demo Warlock, do yourself a favor. Play fucking Demo Warlock. It's amazing. You can summon fucking a raid boss. You can summon Prince Malchazar. That's all you need to know.
It's a pretty good spec.
It's great.
But one other thing about it is that they just basically told people that played those classes, and people are very, very, what's the word? Attached to the classes.
It's not even just that, right? And they have a right to be attached because it takes so fucking long to get a new character to maximum level and gear it up, right? So even though I, for instance, believe that most of the classes play out the same, other than the biggest reasons that I think most people choose classes is class identity. And class identity tends to be a few cooldowns and how your spells look. Because the reality is the gameplay of all the classes doesn't change. You push 4 to 6 buttons and that's about it. But how the class actually appears visually and animation-wise, that's what makes the difference. And because it takes a massive investment, like a time investment, to get a class to maximum level and then to gear them up, you really this isn't like Path of Exile on Diablo where it takes like 10 hours tops to level up and gear up a new character.
No, it hundreds of hours.
Yeah, it takes hundreds of hours. It's not a trivial thing. But Blizzard balanced their game like you can just swap classes. which is they balance their game like it's Diablo, and it doesn't work for an MMO.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, means they don't balance the game at all. Basically.
Yeah, one good thing is that they are trying to work on that in the next expansion, but we're gonna have to see. Anyways,
I like how that's a recurring theme at the moment, unfortunately.
Yeah,
right? We'll have to see because they haven't shown us. They've shown us the bare minimum to appease people.
And the thing about what they've shown us is that we can't really trust Blizzard anymore because they told us that they wouldn't do this again. So when Legion released, they're like, guys, give us a chance. Let us show you that we can fix things. And Legion delivered on most of that. There were still some issues, but they said that it wasn't going to happen again, and then we got BFA.
It's the same concept as how they say, oh, we really want to release new content faster, and we plan on releasing content faster. And they said that basically since RAF ended, and they never delivered on it. They still haven't, really.
Yeah, it's just... I can't really fully trust them.
Yeah, it's hard to put faith in Blizzard when they make it so... I mean, when they can't be consistent. Blizzard's problem has always been a lack of consistency. They're consistent at being fucking inconsistent, which is not a good thing. It's not something you want to really be known for.
Yeah, you don't want to be consistently inconsistent. So, moving on here. You can't really trust Blizzard yet, so wait until you see physical results. Like I said, be cautiously optimistic. Like, the things that they're showing... Yeah, the things that they're showing look good, but don't expect them to be like that as the final product. Overwatch 2 is the next topic here. I'm not happy about this. I'm not going to talk a lot about this. I don't think we should talk a lot about this because there's not really much to say. It should just have been an expansion, I feel. Yeah, we're going to have to see what they announce about it, but...
All we know about it so far is that it's basically like, it might have the campaign, a single-player campaign, and otherwise the multiplayer experience is Left 4 Dead with robots. And basically it's a horde mode. And it's like, you're thinking, okay, that's great, but Team Fortress 2, which is a free game, gave us that for nothing. Why am I... Even if Overwatch 2 is like $20, I'm still thinking, why though? Why am I paying at all? Or, I mean, even though I don't even mind paying for that. It's just, why is this a separate game? Entirely. A rumor has it, I was telling Bag this before podcasts, rumor has it that they're supposedly going to migrate everyone from Overwatch to Overwatch 2. And the only thing that you wouldn't get access if you were an Overwatch player is Overwatch 2 specific content, like the PvE stuff, until you buy it. But then it's like, okay, but why? Why do you need a completely new system? I bet you it won't have a new engine. 100% it won't have a new engine because
I don't think it will.
They're costly to make.
And
they're fucking...
And I don't feel it needs one. I think that the Overwatch engine is fine. I don't think that.
Have you played any of the custom game modes, like using like the modded game modes in Overwatch? Some of those. You're talking about where, like the scripted
things. Yeah, the scripted things. Yeah, I've seen them. Yeah,
if those things can be a thing, then Blizzard can certainly fucking do it. Like
yeah, it's kind of like why. So as I said. Why is this going to be... Okay, so my reason why I think that this is going to be a new thing, besides what Mag said, is they want to change the pricing scheme of Overwatch. I think they're trying to move away from loot boxes, because I don't think that the loot boxes, in the way that Overwatch is designed, makes them enough money. I feel that that's how they're going to do this.
If they didn't give you them on Level Up, maybe? Because then you would have more whales.
Yeah.
But the reality here is that a whale is somebody who generally plays the game all the time. But if you play the game all the time, and right... If Overwatch is your main game and you're dedicated to that, there's no reason to be a whale because eventually you'll get everything you ever want just by playing. That's the thing. If you play Overwatch every day, 3 hours a day, eventually you will get all the skins for nothing. And the only reason, and the biggest fucking thing you would ever spend your money on is the timed events.
Yeah,
so really,
I mean...
from their bottom, so I like the whole fact that you level up, you get loot boxes, naturally, right? I don't like loot boxes in general, but that's a decent way of doing it. But the thing is, it does hurt their bottom line.
Yeah, terrible. So I don't think that there's any other real reason that we're going to see, them switch over to...
Which is terrible.
Overwatch 2. Because... They're combining the PvP with Overwatch 1. Overwatch 1 players, when they play PvP, will be playing with Overwatch 2 players. They're all going to share the same heroes. They're all going to share the same maps. There's nothing specifically new about Overwatch 2 except...
All your existing skins transfer over.
Yeah, everything that you have that you basically could have paid for transfers over, and you just get Left 4 Dead mechanics. That's all that you're really getting, and it doesn't even look like it's a good iteration of that.
And
keep in mind, as we said before, it might change.
It might change, yeah. But the thing is, we have so many Left 4 Dead style games, right? And so many of them are good, and they just do the genre better. I mean, Dead by Daylight and Warhammer Vermintide are two things. If you like the Left 4 Dead style gameplay, then you should be looking at Dead by Daylight or Warhammer Vermintide. Because those are the two top games, really, in the genre at the moment. That I know of, at least. I mean, or you can play Left 4 Dead 2, because lots of people still play that. Seriously. Lots of people play Left 4 Dead 2 still.
Yeah. And, it's Left 4 Dead with robots. It just looks like there's not really a point for this to be its own separate game. Why not just make it an expansion?
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna have to see. That's all there really is to it. Last topic of
we're gonna have to see.
Is
that's
Warcraft
the new
3
title of
Reforged.
the fucking. That's the title of the podcast.
Yeah. That's basically it. We're gonna have to see.
We're gonna have to see.
But Warcraft 3 Reforged, the beta's starting for it. We still don't have a lot of information. The original cinematics, apparently the files for these original cinematics still exist. They have them, which I'm surprised about, because they didn't have other shit from after that.
Yeah,
after they made Warcraft 3.
And this is for the record why preservation in video games is very, very important. More importantly, though, is that these cutscenes were originally made in 1080p and then downscaled to 200p. This means that when Warcraft 3 Reforged comes out, we will get the full 1080p cinematics, which is good.
Yeah, so
I'm excited for that. 100%.
Yeah, I think that it's gonna be pretty cool. I hope that it's as good as they say that it's gonna be. But that's pretty much it.
Come out this year? I'm guessing it's delayed, right?
Something like that. I mean, I don't think it's gonna come out this year. It may come out at Christmas, maybe. But
I'm just
like,
saying,
I highly doubt it.
They said 2019, but they haven't said it's
beta,
delayed either.
Nowadays, beta is basically released, but well, that's not exactly true for Blizzard games. They don't fully release. They don't do like open betas really much anymore. But
not really.
But that's pretty much all the info we have on that. By the way, there's a picture floating around. I don't know where it's at, and I don't have it. But Arthas looks fucking good.
Oh no, we do.
The model for him.
I'm pretty sure you.
Do we have it?
Yeah. It's right up there. You linked it to me. Let's get that up here.
Oh yeah, let me pull it up then.
On the that mount that I don't know, I can't see it. That's the recurring joke.
Yeah, let's see this. Here, I'll pull it up here.
Yeah, I got it up here too. It's fucking cool as shit.
Yeah, that looks good. I mean, look at that. That's the model. That's not just like art. That's the model. You can kind of see that it's a model too, right? Like you can see like in his face,
you know,
the model textures of it.
People are looking at that and they're going, "Oh yeah, that's fucking awesome! Fuck yeah!" I'm not excited about this model alone though. In a vacuum, I'm excited for when we fucking beat the shit out of Illidan with this model. Because imagine what Illidan's gonna look like. Oh, it's gonna be fucking amazing, right?
Yeah, that should be good.
I will tell you too that they have confirmed that they're also changing the way that some of the zones look. So like Dalaran,
really,
and Silvermoon, I think are gonna get not those places. Like Night Elf lands and Night Elf territory will look a little different. Basically, a lot of the locations, the locale will probably look more like their World of Warcraft counterparts than the actual Warcraft 3. Because in Warcraft 3, they said that some of those places look a little bland, and they want to try and fix that by being inspired by the World of Warcraft versions, which I'm not.
Honestly, the best part about Warcraft 3 getting reforged is that hopefully this is going to reinvigorate the fucking map create mod. I hope that's a part of it. If they don't do that, I'm gonna be upset.
The best part,
like I know that Dota 2 is doing that at this point. They've taken over that.
Yeah, but who gives a shit?
Area,
I want to play Element TD again in fucking Warcraft 3. You can play,
I think that it will exist.
You can play Element TD standalone on your fucking phone now, and you should.
Yeah, and I do.
It's good.
It's pretty good.
Pretty fucking good.
But yeah, it should be interesting.
I can play all my meme maps that played fucking Linkin Park music the moment you fucking entered them. For some powerful reason.
There were so many of those kind of maps that were so good, and it was funny because. Go ahead.
Oh, and before somebody ports Dota. I mean, why wouldn't you, right?
Yeah, like I have so many fond memories of just these random weird maps that were like challenge maps that you had to like do specific things and like dodge stuff as you like walked around. And the only reason that it worked is because of how terrible movement was in Warcraft 3. Like it was really hard to move units around properly.
Really janky.
So that was a lot of the difficulty of it, but And the fact that you had to remake the lobby every time that you failed on most of these. So you got this just system of like you found these people and you'd be like remake, and you join the game.
That back.
Yeah, I know, right? I hope that if they really want to make it
multiplayer will be a thing, though. I can guarantee you that they have said that. So,
yeah, if they really want to make the third-party thing a working system, they need to have a reset button, right? Where you don't have to reload the game and it just reloads it to the base state, right? They need to do that. But
it's still a cursory thing. By the way, players will have access to map and mod editors.
Good. All right, good. That's perfect. That's all that I ask. That basically confirms that I will get Warcraft 3 Reforged if they have that.
Whether they have it on release or not, I don't know.
We'll have to see. But when that is available, I will be playing it. So that's pretty much it. Let's move on to enough Blizzard talk already. We're done with talking about Blizzard for today. There'll be more always, apparently. But with our track record. So first big thing is Death Stranding is getting really mixed reviews. Most of them leaning towards negative.
Yeah, and in fact, there are at least 2 magazines that said that there are 2 publications that said they will not be releasing a review. The first and more notable one is Edge, and the second one is Giant Bomb. I think that the Giant Bomb is different primarily because they are going to have somebody do a review. They just haven't released it yet. Edge, on the other hand, the dude who did the review said that it was so tedious that he could just not play it, and therefore he cannot, in good faith, finish it. He can't do it. He cannot release a review for Death Stranding because he didn't finish it. And the embargo pretty much said that you shouldn't finish it before you release a review. So he's going to follow their advice and just not release a review. But it should be noted that when you release a Twitter statement saying that you're not going to finish the... Yeah, when you release a Twitter statement saying that you're not going to finish the game because it was so terrible, that's pretty much the review. You just don't have a numerical score to it now. That's it.
So anybody who doesn't want like even the littlest bit of spoilers for the game, just turn off the podcast now, basically, because this is most of the end of the podcast we're going to talk about. We'll talk a little bit about Toby Fox and some other stuff, but the
fucking Toby Fox.
The idea behind the game, and I've heard this from Mag, is that you're a delivery man and you're delivering items, and apparently you like stumble around and fall over and shit if you don't organize the items in your inventory properly.
There's a balance system, yeah.
Like you have to like balance the weight and stuff in your pack and all of that so that you don't fall over, and it's just very tedious. It's the same repetitive game mechanic over and over and over and over again. The story is not good enough to matter, apparently. I mean, it's just really like, some people like it because they're Kojima fanboys, and some people like that kind of thing. Oh, yeah, I'm not a big fan of that kind of thing, by the way.
It's definitely got it's supposedly got that Kojima feel. So if you like Kojima work, then it's great. But I don't care enough about Kojima's storytelling to want to go through that tedious bullshit. Right? I love Metal Gear Solid. I really do love the series. I mean, I even love Metal Gear Solid 4 and all of its fucking goddamn tedious long
an hour and a half of cutscenes?
Yeah, it's terrible. But the thing is, I like that. But I like that because the game was good and the cutscenes were decent. It was fine, right? But Death Stranding is coming off as a game that has decent story and exposition, but then the game itself is garbage. So fucking why bother?
Yeah, it's gonna be, as we said, this podcast is just, we're gonna have to see. It's literally, this whole podcast is just like, guess we're gonna have to see how it goes. That's basically Death Stranding. But yeah,
that's
so
that's the title.
See how it goes. That's the title. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for Death Stranding. I'm surprised that it got that negative of reviews. I was expecting, with all of the shit that we saw about like what's going to be happening and all of that, I was expecting it to be
not as
much more favorably reviewed. Yeah,
it should be noted that on Metacritic it's 80 above, but I don't give a fuck for numbers, because numbers are, I mean, nothing. How many games do you see that aren't above 80 or 70 at least? It's like, yeah.
Ooh, not a good place here.
Yeah, who knows?
But yeah, so we really don't know. Something interesting, Mag and I just randomly kind of stumbled upon this the other day. Fucking Toby Fox made a song for Pokemon Sword and Shield.
Yeah, he made he composed one. They don't say what battle theme it is. Yeah, we were talking about this mainly because I don't remember why. I was looking up Toby Fox stuff. Oh, I remember. I was fucking... I was watching fucking Davey504 on YouTube. And he was doing the whole fucking Spooktober shit, right?
Oh,
and
yeah,
And he played Megalovania. And I'm like, and we were talking about, and from there we got into talking about Toby Fox and how he's he's too good for this planet. And he should go away and go to his other planet.
He's done too much fucking good shit, dude. He's too good at what he does.
If fucking Toby Fox ever watches this, I want you to know that you're a terrible person. You make the rest of us look bad. Fuck you. Take your awesomeness to another planet. Give the rest of us all dudes some chance. Come on, man.
Because, like,
fucking
this is a dude who makes...
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
First it was fucking the webcomic, Homestuck. Then it was fucking... And that entire thing was just for his fucking project at the time. His own little fucking Earthbound fucking... mod, right? His Earthbound fucking thing, right? That's where Megalovania, because Megalovania is a meme, right? But that's where it comes from. It came from that whole thing, and it's basically been in every single one of his products. So first, this guy makes fucking Earthbound mod, which was fucking great. Then he makes fucking Homestuck fucking music, which was great. Then he makes fucking Undertale, which was fucking unexpectedly fucking amazing, basically across global sensation, right? So fucking good that he did fucking Smash music, didn't he? Fucking...
Well, the thing is that Sans is in Smash.
Yeah,
he's a costume for the Mii. So yeah, he did so well with his small indie game. This is literally just a random fucking indie game that he got to go to Sakurai's house and play Smash with him, and they decided to put Sans in Smash. That is how much this game's popularity has boosted him.
Is he an assist?
He's a skin for the Mii fighter.
The reason why I think that's significantly better is because, for instance, there are other cameo appearances in Smash. For instance, you don't have to like the assist system in Smash, but the assist system has been fucking amazing for putting in just random characters. Like fucking Shovel Knight characters are assists in Smash and Ultimate. Because why not? It's easy. Just fucking skin them in and stick them. They don't have to be actual characters. They just make an appearance and it's amazing. But Sans gets an actual skin. And it's like, Sans is a meme. 100% meme, right? Yeah. Like just globalized meme. Tip-fuel.
So he makes amazing music. He makes a fucking popular ass... Yeah, he makes a popular ass fucking game. And this game is... Everyone pretty much knows Undertale at this point.
Yeah, whether you like it or not.
He's making Deltarune now.
Which is similar.
Deltarune is what Undertale was supposed to be, but Undertale was like the spin-off that he decided to make. So keep that in mind. Undertale is his spin-off story.
What a great fucking music track right now.
Yeah, I know, right?
Well, that's the thing too, because I was telling to you, how fucking this is just distracting. It's really just distracting. But I was telling you how like fucking I couldn't play Undertale. I know Undertale. Yeah. I know the storyline. I've seen it, right? But I couldn't play it personally because I did have it spoiled for me. And in my opinion, is once you get Undertale spoiled, that ruins the whole fucking thing, right? You can't. The whole fucking the storyline in that game, and I'm dead, bugger. The whole game.
Yeah, I died a little bit.
Hinges. The game hinges on you not knowing what's happened or what's supposed to happen. So when you know what you can do, because that's how I was spoiled. I wasn't spoiled on what happens. I was spoiled in the idea that you can. I was spoiled in mechanics, right? In actual gameplay, because I'm trying to say this without spoiling it, right? That's the thing, right? So Undertale was spoiled for me not because of what happens, but because of what can happen. And knowing that ruined the whole thing for me. So I needed to play Deltarune on my own without seeing anything. And it's great. I like Deltarune. It's fucking weird. 100% weird. Fuck Toby Fox. Fuck you and your fucking perfection. You piece of shit.
But yeah, that's pretty much it for Toby Fox. He's a fucking legend. He made a song for Sword and Shield. You can go listen to it right now. Last little thing that I want to talk about. This is just kind of a side point I just found, and I think it's interesting. It relates to something we talked about in a previous episode. Amazon is cracking down on unofficial Nintendo products. So if you remember in that previous episode, we talked about that handheld thing that's going to play like Game Boy games. This is in relation to that. because there are, as I said, there are people who are going to make copycat cartridges for very cheap, and Amazon is cracking down on this. So as I said before,
trying to nip that in the bud right the fuck now.
Yeah,
because of course,
as I said before,
the copyright issues of that is insane.
Yep. This is gonna be an interesting thing to watch, and this is why we brought it up, because things like this we knew were going to happen. But we're just gonna have to see how that goes. But should we just make the podcast an hour and a half now? We seem to be going about an hour and a half every time at this point.
I don't want to officiate that. I would like the podcast to stay at an hour, because I think an hour is a good time. It's just that we're fucking terrible at timekeeping.
Yeah. Well, we have so much to talk about, dude.
I think realistically, BlizzCon is the big issue here, right? Like, if it wasn't for BlizzCon,
there's just a lot of shit going on.
Fuck you, Blizzard, for making me talk about you for the third stream in a row.
Yeah, basically like 4 out of our 8 streams have just been Blizzard shit, but I mean that's just kind of what's going on.
Yeah, 2 weeks. 2 weeks from now we'll be talking about fucking. Oh, it's
4.0.
Yeah, I'll talk about that when we get closer to it. But I can tell you, because we're changing up because we're changing the podcast time, right? The podcast that is following the Path of Exile Con will not be on that day. It can't be, because we're doing it Monday, right? I don't get back till tomorrow, basically, on that. So
that's fine. I mean, we can edit it for whatever we gotta do.
Yeah, I'll discuss that when we do it.
Okay. But yeah, that's gonna be it, boys. Remember, you can find the links to all of our social media, the YouTube, everything in the description or in the bio for the account that you're on if you're on Spotify or SoundCloud. Thanks for watching, and we will catch you next time. And look forward to ExileCon. Later, boys.
See you later.